Thank you, Cathaoirleach. I want to formally express my deep dissatisfaction with the absence of the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform here tonight. Now, in fairness, Minister Patrick O'Donovan, who is very familiar with the issues, informed me of his unavailability, but not one of the other two ministers in that department have attended here this evening. The absence is becoming a worrying trend in the government. 2 weeks ago, when I tabled a motion discussing the struggles of farmers in the Shannon Callows, none of the three agricultural ministers were available to take it either. It's totally unacceptable that 6 ministers across 2 departments are absent for discussions on urgent matters regarding the impact of flooding in South Roscommon. Ordinarily, I would insist on postponing this debate, but the communities around the Shannon Callows and Lough Funshinagh cannot afford to wait. Lough Funshinagh's water level today is 330 millimetres higher than this day in 2020, and later that winter the village of Bala nearly flooded. The community around Lough Funshinagh and the Shannon Callows face anxiety with each weather report predicting rain. 4 years ago, €7 million was allocated by then Minister Kevin Boxer-Morton to alleviate flooding on the River Shannon between Mealich Weir and Athlone by removing a number of pinch points that were impeding the flow of the river and leading to the retention of waters north of Lough Derg. Yet we are still awaiting the appointment of an ecological consultant to commence the necessary environmental study. The people of the Shannon Callows cannot wait indefinitely. Minister, last year the ongoing issue of Lough Funshinagh reached a critical point, and Minister O'Donovan approved funding for a new planning process. However, as of last month, while surveys and investigations have advanced, difficulties in procuring an environmental consultancy services due to market conditions have stalled progress, according to a Dáil reply that I received. Some surveys are underway, but we are still awaiting the formal appointment of consultants to progress this project to the planning stage. Both the Lough Funshinagh overflow pipe and the Shannon Callows excavation require complex environmental assessments, but progress is being hindered without the necessary expertise. Minister O'Donovan attributes this to market conditions which favour private projects with deeper pockets and simpler assessments. Consequently, communities across South Roscommon live in fear of the next rainfall warning. Funding is not an issue, as the OPW have €1,300 million of a budget for approximately 100 flood projects, but the inability to source environmental experts puts over 10,000 Irish families at risk due to delays in flood plan implementations, as seen at Lough Funshinagh and on the Shannon Callows. The main delays include protracted waits for planning permission, which we now hope with the forthcoming planning bill will be addressed. However, the projects at Lough Funshinagh and the Shannon Callows are not even at that stage, as is the case with many more similar projects. What we urgently need are surveyors and specialised staff to design effective schemes. The ecological complexities often require detailed analysis to comply with both EU and national environmental laws. I propose that the Office of Public Works directly employ key environmental personnel for flood relief projects like those at Lough Funshinagh and the Shannon Callows. Additionally, we should reach out to experienced professionals who emigrated during the recession and have since gained valuable experience abroad. Offering permanent contracts within the OPW would address their concerns about job stability and tenure, and signal the government is committed to delivering on these projects.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, to respond.
I thank the Deputy for raising these issues today. I'm very aware that the risk of flooding has a very significant impact on communities, and I'm aware of the distress that flooding can cause to people and the impact it can have on their homes, businesses and farms. In 2018, the OPW completed the largest study of flood risk ever undertaken by the state, CFRAM, Catchment Flood Risk Assessment Management, to establish those communities that are at risk from significant flood events. This provided the roadmap for the delivery of government investment in flood relief schemes. Flood relief schemes are the primary means of protecting cities, towns and villages from flooding. Outside of the major flood relief schemes, local flooding issues are being addressed by local authorities with the support of the OPW under the Minor Flood Mitigation Works and Coastal Protection Scheme. This scheme provides funding for minor flood mitigation works or studies costing less than €750,000 each to address localised flooding and coastal protection problems. Funding of up to 90% of the cost is available for approved projects. The scheme generally applies where a solution can be readily identified and achieved in a short time frame. To date, the OPW has approved funding under the scheme of over €40 million for some 700 projects for the Shannon River Basin District. In relation to Lough, Funshinagh, local flooding issues are a matter in the first instance for each local authority to investigate and address. All local authorities, including Roscommon County Council, may carry out flood mitigation works within their own capital works programme and using their own resources, or by applying for funding under the OPW's Minor Flood Mitigation Works scheme. Roscommon County Council is leading the response to the flooding risk at Lough Funshinagh, and under the direction of Minister O'Donovan, senior officials from the OPW met with officials from Roscommon County Council during 2022, focusing on identifying possible approaches to a viable solution to manage flood risk at Lough Funshinagh. In December 2022, Roscommon County Council and the OPW agreed to establish an expert working group to support and help to identify the pathway to finding a means of progressing a viable solution. The membership of this expert working group includes cross-departmental and agency representation. The initial work of the expert group was to scope out the requirements for a commission to undertake the necessary surveys and investigators. This work is being informed by a review by the OPW of the evidence and research on the nature and functioning of Lough Funshinagh. The brief for the necessary surveys and investigations required have been progressed, but due to the current market conditions, there has been difficulty procuring these services. A steering group being led by the Council with representation from the OPW oversee the work to identify a viable solution to manage the flooding risk at Lough Funshinagh. The steering group has been meeting regularly to discuss the progression of the necessary surveys and investigations and the estimated timelines to progress to implementation. In relation to Shannon, Callows and Deputy, if I don't get through it all because there's quite a bit, I'll do it in follow-up. There are currently 13 completed schemes on the Shannon River Basin District, and these schemes are already providing protection to over 2,600 properties. These completed schemes entail the total investment of some €71.9 million. A further 38 flood relief schemes will be progressed in the Shannon catchment as part of the Government's €1.3 billion investment in flood relief measures over the lifetime of the National Development Plan to 2030. The OPW and local authorities are currently working together to advance 26 of these schemes, including schemes at Lough and Springfield that are currently at construction stage. Total funding commitment in respect of these 26 schemes is over €240 million. The remaining 12 projects will commence during the lifetime of the NDP. When completed, the schemes will protect 95% of properties identified as being at significant risk from flooding in the Shannon River Basin District. For all flood relief schemes, including those in Shannon River Basin District, designing a technical solution, ensuring a robust approach to environmental assessments and fulfilling other regulatory requirements are essential to informing the best scheme and to reducing the risk of challenges to a proposed scheme. By meeting such requirements as an EIA report or an appropriate assessment screening or an Nature impact statement, the likely effects of each scheme on the environment are fully considered, such that any impacts can be appropriately mitigated, that the integrity of the European designated sites is not adversely affected.
Thanks. Now you can see the reason of my frustration that we haven't a relevant minister here. The points I raised aren't being addressed, and it's not your fault, Minister, in relation to it. A further point, Minister, that needs to be addressed, as well as the staffing issue, is the significant hurdle in the form of the environmental regulations, a kind of black box that complicates project implementation. Currently, our understanding and application of EU and national environmental laws are mired in uncertainty, pending judicial interpretations. This lack of clarity is not only inadequate, but it also deters environmental consultants from engaging with complex assessments required for projects like those at Lough Funshinagh and the River Shannon Callows. The ambiguity surrounding these environmental laws hampers our ability to move forward. We urgently need definitive interpretations of these complex regulations. Therefore, I am urging the Government to instruct the Law Reform Commission to conduct a thorough review of all environmental legislation applicable in Ireland. The aim should be to revise and clarify these laws, eliminating any ambiguities, because across organisations like the EPA, the Heritage, local authorities and the National Parks and Wildlife Service, we need to know what is and what is not acceptable practice. Such a reform, Minister, would not only streamline the environmental aspects of project design, but would also safeguard our communities and our natural landscapes. It would facilitate the swift advancement of crucial projects, particularly those aimed at protecting homes in areas like South Roscommon, which are currently at risk of being washed away. This clarity in environmental legislation is imperative for efficient, effective and timely project implementation, ensuring both environmental integrity and the safety of our communities. And can I ask you, Minister, to do one thing for me, to take the content of what I've put on the record here today and ask that I get a substantive response to these specific issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Indeed, you've made some very clear points and you've made some very clear suggestions as well. I will read what I've got here in relation to Shannon Callows. It may be of interest, may be of use. I understand that a tender will issue in January for an ecological consultant to carry out a high-level environmental study. The study will consider the possible impacts of the excavation of material at key locations in the Shannon River channel, the longer-term maintenance of the riverbed and changes in water levels. The Shannon Flood Risk State Agency Coordination Group last met on the 11th of October and discussed a range of issues relating to work underway to assist with flood risk management along the River Shannon, including the Pinch Points project. But Deputy, I'll take away your ask for sure and bring it to Minister O'Donovan.